welcome guys. Just so everybody's aware, we have Nicole and Mico with us today. They're two Canadians traveling the world. Quit your jobs from our understanding and are living your best life right now. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourselves and where you are right now and where you're headed?
Yeah, we're Nicole, Mico. I'm Mico. Nicole. We're from Calgary, Canada. And last year in March of 2021, we decided to leave our jobs and travel the world full time. We've been on the road ever since. We had a brief stop in Christmas back home, but otherwise we've just been continuously traveling. We are now at our maybe 18th country since the start of it.
Something like that.
Can't quite remember. But it's
awesome.
been really, really good.
Yeah, and right now we're in Colombia. We've spent the last 7 or so months in South America. But yeah, this is the end of South America for us. So we leave South America next week and head over to Asia.
That's awesome. And on your channel, you guys talk about all of your travels, correct? Like where you are and what you're doing and all that great things you see.
That's right. Yeah. For the first 6 months of our travel, we didn't have a YouTube channel. We barely had an Instagram, but then after 6 months of traveling, we thought it'd be kind of fun to record these memories for ourselves, and then eventually became like for ourselves and our family, and then for ourselves, our family, and then the internet. So we started a YouTube channel and have been, consistently putting travel vlog videos on our channel about all the different places we've traveled to and travel experiences, and also kind of travel tips and packing and things like that. Not quite backpacker shoestring budget, but definitely very budget conscious because we do this full time.
It's like that was really good. I remember even one day when I used to go on that TV over there. It just say, travel the world Canadians, and that's how we found you guys. And ever since we subscribe it right away.
Yeah. Well, you guys have kind of done it in a different order though, right? So what made you guys, because you're young, right? You don't have to tell us your ages if you don't want to, but you guys are significantly younger than us, but you've been able to quit your jobs and travel full time. So like, how did you do that?
Yeah.
Why did you decide that? That's amazing.
We're totally happy to share ages. I'm 30, Mico's 31. So when we started this adventure, I just turned 29 and we left on just before Mico's 30th birthday as well. I think for us, a big part of it was doing it while we were young. That was actually one of our motivators. We really wanted to do it when we just felt like we could kind of go and do anything, especially as it relates, I guess, to like our physical abilities. So that was definitely a driving factor to while we were young. We also were interested obviously in doing it before we had children, if we decide to have children. So that was part of it. It was like, well, if we want to do that, there's sort of a time limit on when that can happen. So that was playing into it. I guess the how we did it, really, I mean, I wish there was like a secret sauce to like, how did we manage to save up and do a trip like this?
I mean, you win the lottery twice and you get to put that in the notes, and that's basically Nicole and Mico. No, I'm kidding.
Mico sometimes jokes that he's like a secret Filipino prince.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say.
Okay. So I wish we had a fancy story like that, but it really was just saving.
Yeah, I mean, maybe even like pause on that briefly. Like if you wind it back, Nicole and I, she had her first trip to Europe when she graduated high school.
Left Mico at home at that
over
point.
a decade ago now, and then like I think in 2011 was our first trip together to Australia. We were there for a couple months in New Zealand, and then ever since then we really had this idea of putting travel as a priority in our life. At the time we were like heavily into university. We had like part-time jobs and things like that, and after graduating university we started entering like the career workforce in our respective fields. And then we never lost sight of that like goal to travel.
I think, and we took a couple of years after undergrad where we just worked. I think we took 2 years, and then we actually both started our master's degrees. And so that kind of put pause on the idea of like long-term travel, but it almost gave us this like, okay, we have 3 years to complete our master's. And while we're doing that, like, let's save, right? Yeah. Like, let's just buckle down. We didn't have time to do anything else anyway. All we did was go to work. And then in the evenings, we were both doing school. And so we were so busy that we couldn't really spend any money. So it kind of worked out well. It was like, let's take these these few years, save up, and then have this big hurrah when we finish our degrees, take off for like travel in sort of like an indefinite timeline for the first time.
A goal that really like simmered while we were in university. And then when we were finishing our masters, we felt like that was a good milestone to like act on like this dream of doing some long-term traveling. Obviously, but like where things ended up in 2020, it didn't quite go to plan with travel plans as with everybody around the world. But we eventually like left in March of 2021 after working for, I think, continuously for like 5 or 6 years or something like that.
Yeah.
But really the secret, like, to answer your question, it really was just, we had this goal in mind. We decided that we were going to do some long-term traveling to the point where we're leaving our jobs. And so we just saved and put money aside, had it like in some investments as we waited for that day where we could actually leave Canada.
Yeah, pull the Band-Aid off.
Nice.
Yeah, so no real secret. It was, you have a goal and
You work your butt off.
you work your butt
Yeah,
off.
hard work.
We really reined in our spending. I think that was a big piece of it. I think we were at a point in our lives where like we definitely could have gone out and got nicer cars and put our money into things like vehicles or a bigger home and have a backyard and those sorts of things. And although that would have been lovely as well, we couldn't do that and save for travel. So we just made the choice that instead of doing those things, we were going to put that money aside and put it towards this goal. So
yeah. And I think with a question we get from a lot of people is, or a comment we get from a lot of people is like, oh, I wish I could do that. I wish, that was like me and I could travel the world and things like that. And a lot of times we say, I think, you're probably more than capable, especially as Canadians. I think you probably have some capability to have some, put some savings aside. And, as long as you don't have any kind of major debts or dependents. Luckily for us, like where we don't have any of those, so
any dependents
major debts, maybe.
Should I say yeah?
Not yet, maybe not yet, who knows?
Who knows?
Just a dog, we just have a dog.
But what I'm saying is it's it's very possible. It is within reach. I think a lot of people think that like, oh, I wish I can never do something like that. Well, then you can't do that tomorrow, but like in 4 years maybe you can, which is where we were. Right,
because you have that desire, right?
Yeah, like we didn't think would be like up and left like the next day. It's something that you plan for in advance.
Yeah, you definitely worked hard to get there, that's for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's funny, I guess for myself personally, in my head, I don't feel financially independent, although we have no jobs.
Yeah.
I often I guess think we're not, because we have no way to maintain this long term at this point. So I guess it hasn't like crossed my mind as being financially independent, although I guess in a way in this moment.
Right now, we're not working. We do get a small income from YouTube, very small income. And we do have also a rental property back in Calgary that we've maintained as our house. We rented it out. And that that more or less kind of breaks even. But otherwise, we don't have anything coming in. So certainly traveling this way is not financially sustainable in the long run. How far we go really depends on how we spend our money. Obviously, Nicole and I try to keep things very budget friendly, stay in like longer term. Airbnbs, we don't, we don't eat out at restaurants every night like you may and when you're going on vacation. So we do a lot of our own cooking. So we keep costs like that pretty low. And then the other thing to consider, what not a lot of people think about when they think of long-term travel, is that it's a lot cheaper to live in other countries than it is to live in your own.
So much
especially if you're coming from Canada, or if you're coming from the US, your monthly expenses in the US or Canada is going to be very different than like our monthly expenses over the past little while here in South America, especially here in Colombia.
way cheaper.
So, when you couple those things together, you can really make your money go longer depending on how you live, your lifestyle on the road, and also like where you choose. We kind of thought, okay, maybe we'll put the more expensive countries up at the front / middle. And then when we start kind of getting pretty low on our budget, we'll start moving and migrating towards Asia. And as we told you earlier, we're migrating towards Asia.
So it's starting to wind up.
Well, it's just, we take a look at it and think, okay, like if we move to certain parts of the world, we can travel for longer, of course, right? If we stay here in South America, we could probably go for like a significant amount of time, but if we go to Southeast Asia and Asia, you can just extend that even further. And that's one of the reasons we've barely touched Europe along this whole trip, as an example. Same with Africa. We haven't touched much of Africa on this trip. And the reason is just because those are expensive countries to visit for the most part, or continents to visit for the most part. So easier to stay away from them at this point.
Yeah, and I guess another good point is, even if you guys have to come back, I mean, you are way ahead of us, even though we haven't done that yet, you guys are way ahead of us. And the nice thing is, you know how much you need to spend per month, like in per year, right? So going back to work, it might be a possibility, and there's nothing wrong with this. And even us, we have to consider as a plan B or as a plan C. And by the way, if you guys have not subscribed to their channel yet, it's a good way to do it. Of course, we're gonna link on the description below.
I think it's great because in the financial independence community, quite often we talk about taking a gap year, right? Seeing what it is that you think you might want to do. And I think that unknowingly, you guys have reached a point of financial independence where you were able to take your gap year and a half, probably 2 years, right? More or less, and really kind of see what possibilities are out there for you. Yeah, you're going to have to go back to work, but you've had this great experience because you were able to really dial down and save and have your goals that you wanted to achieve, and you guys have done it. I think it's great.
Yeah, Nicole and I always joke that it's like practice retirement.
And that's exactly what it is. Yeah. And trust us, if we could do a gap year, I would, but we're so close to the end, it doesn't make sense for us now. If we were to go back 15 years, I would totally do a gap year or two, right?
Kind of in line with that, one of the best things that we've got from taking time off is just the ability to really step back and assess our life, like the life that we had in Canada, and just really ask, like, is that what we want long term? And whether the answer is yes or no, like how do we sort of elevate that? Like how do we bring in a bit more meaning for us? Because we were at a point in our lives in Canada where we loved our life, but it just felt we wanted a little bit more, I think. And we just wanted to find a bit more meaning. And we found that we had been sort of living to work for a really long time, and we weren't enjoying it anymore. Taking a lot of time off has really allowed us to look at it with just a way broader perspective. Like you meet people all around the world who are doing all sorts of neat things to either bring in income, or they've set themselves up already. Now they have passive income, and you're like, wow, like this is possible. People do this. It's just that we had to get out of our little box, I think, of like having a 9 to 5 and doing that and contributing to RSPs, and then, retiring at 65. I think that was, obviously our mentality. And now we're looking at other ways that in the future, maybe 10 years down the line, we can be in your guys' shoes and be looking again at doing this.
Yeah. I think you guys are well on your way to doing that for sure.
Yeah.
Well, the biggest hurdle's already done, right? Like you guys have already done it once. Like you've saved up and you've walked away from your jobs. That's
it's true.
Right? Next time
it would be less scary next time. I hope so, because this time was terrifying, but I hope that the next time we go to do it, it's less terrifying.
Yeah, honestly, I think some value that I think we could share with you guys in your community that we found from our experience is that it's kind of nice to have done this once already, so that, let's say we come back, we go to work, and then we plan for, kind of like what you guys are doing, launching into like financial independence and things like that. It's nice to know that we have done this before and it's not as scary the second time. Especially if we're thinking of like moving abroad or getting different kinds of jobs and things like that. It's just nice to have like one trial run under our belt, and then next time when we are like fully take off and get a new house in a different country or get a job like elsewhere, it's it's something that we've already done once. So and then as Nicole mentioned earlier, the travel experience itself kind of shows you different ways to live that lifestyle abroad. So you can kind of pick and choose now what you want your post financial independence life to look like after seeing other people do it. And then like for us, the benefit is we can come back home, we kind of have an idea of which lifestyle we liked, and then work towards that over the next decade or two. Until whatever long until we get to that point where we're ready to take off again for the second time. So I think there's a lot of benefit in taking that gap year. We totally didn't plan that.
We're just gonna travel and just see places and be like, that's cool, great, we'll go back to Canada and pick up where you left off.
You're practicing retirement. How does your day look like?
No, that's a really good question. And I think for us, our day looks really different depending on if it's kind of like a YouTube day, because of course we're now doing a lot of editing and a lot of sort of background work for YouTube. Sometimes we refer to that as work, kind of.
Yeah.
So
It is
I mean,
work.
yeah, there are probably 3 to 4 days a week where we just sit in our apartment and we cook and we travel plan and we edit YouTube videos and we just do that, all that background work. I'd say the other 3 to 4 days of the week are usually travel related. So that's going to a new place or exploring a city, like lots of planes and trains and car rides.
Yeah. When you look at our days before YouTube, and maybe this might connect more with your audience who are looking for, you know, full-time travel without a job. And those were our days in Nepal and Sri Lanka when we weren't really recording anything.
Yeah, we had 6 months of just being.
And and I think that's probably closer to like the true like retirement. We ran out of shows on Netflix.
I think I read like 1 book a day. It was magic.
Nicole ran out of books.
Yeah,
like,
it was so good. Mico was taking little online courses for just interests that he had just never explored before, because why not?
Yeah.
We worked out every day. It was great.
Yeah, it was really nice. And like in Sri Lanka, there's not like a wisdom that we were born with, or you know, like, it's just something we noticed that like, hey, you know, while we're on the road, it's kind of nice to like look at other people and see how they like, you know, expats abroad and see what they're doing and how they're doing their lifestyle. Like, you know, what can we learn from them? Where we were, it was really, you know, tropical. So it was like a lot of beach time, a lot of, you know, pool time, learn surfing. So like those are really good days. You know? I don't know why we traded it for YouTube. But like I think, you know, for the people who are watching and listening, if they're thinking, you know, what does that day, like those days look like? It really can look like that. It can look like you know, these busy days with YouTube or anywhere in between, depending on what you choose to do in your day, whether you still continue working or you just decide to veg out for as long as you want. So,
and I think no matter like YouTube or no YouTube, for us, what we learned is that like traveling long term, it's really not a holiday. It really is your lifestyle. And so I think something that was important for us that took us a little while to really figure out is that you don't want to do something every day. You're going to be so burnt out, right? Like you really do. Like, I think we needed to learn to just like to temper that.
Just a quick question. So retirement obviously brings all these ideas of lounging around all day and whatnot.
Yeah.
People in the FIRE community or financial independence community, and you as young people, we're not people that tend to sit around and do nothing for long. Did you find at some point you guys started to kind of get a little itchy, like you wanted to start doing? So is that kind of why the YouTube sort of took off? Like you kind of felt like you needed to do something else?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I could have read for at least 1 whole year and just gone through tons of books.
Yeah.
Mico needed an activity.
Like just our personalities, you know, we were full-time into school and working, and at the same time school and working. Jump out of that and you know, now you have all this freedom and this time in the world with like no obligations to anybody but yourself.
That's the other thing. There was no family or friends around either. So it really was like just us.
You do like recharge your batteries. And I think I recharge my batteries quicker than Nicole. And then like, I was just like really ready to do something like different. And, you know, we like YouTube. We love watching people travel. And we decided like, hey, maybe that could be a nice creative output we kind of do on the side while we do this. And then
and something to learn. I think that was actually really important for us, is like we were both interested in just like trying a hobby that otherwise in our lives previously we really never had the time to explore. And now it was like, well, let's try this thing that we had absolutely no background in and no experience in. And like, but it was like there was no, I think, downside for us. It was like, if we don't like it, we just stop. You don't have to do it. But we just stop if we don't like it. Yeah. So that was pretty neat, I think. Like it was neat to have that opportunity. And one of the reasons we decided to try something new is because how often do you have that chance, I think? Go full on into something that in your previous life or in a different time of your life, you wouldn't have had the time for. So, I mean, I'm sure that's how most people who go into retirement feel. They're like, wow, I have all this time. Like, let's find something productive. Let's learn a new skill. Yeah. Volunteer in some way. And so really
come back to work, you know, I've seen that too.
like, oh, I'll just come back 25 hours a week. And I'm like, you're retired. But I know, I kind of understand, like, you do need something that brings you that joy. And when you're long-term traveling, at least our experience was that on those down days where we didn't want to go to, like, you know, see another temple or go to a new town or city, we liked where we were, but there wasn't that meaning, I think, brought to the day of just hanging out in the place we wanted to be. So YouTube, having this other project really on the go, allowed us to feel like we were still kind of working on something, still learning things, doing something together, but having the time to relax and exploring that place.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, I feel like that's important, like to have that activity to do during the day.
Okay.
So in your daily activities or your monthly activities, do you guys have a daily average cost that you like to stay within, or a monthly budget that you stay in within? Just sort of
yeah. I'll let Nicole talk about it, but really quickly, I will say that it's really important to track your budget, like track your expenses. I think for anybody's listening,
big fans of that.
Like otherwise you'll quickly find yourself back home, you know.
The dream ended.
Yeah.
And
it's at least nice to see that train from
Yeah,
from a distance, right? So
that's so true.
but yeah, Nicole.
Yeah, I'm the tracker, so I get to answer the question. I'm the money tracker. Yes, so when we left, we had a goal in mind of spending 100 Canadian dollars a day. In our first year of travel, we really crunched those numbers for a previous video. And in our first year of travel, we averaged 130 Canadian dollars a day. So about 100 US.
Which actually, comes out to about 100 US.
Yeah.
And I kind of joke in the code, like, we did hit the budget, but just different currency.
Just choosing American currency, and we nailed it.
That's what I meant. I don't know what you meant.
No.
Works for me.
I try to budget.
So bear in mind, that's for 2 people.
For 2 people, yeah, that's for 2 people. And honestly, a huge chunk of that for us is our flight costs, right? So the costs will be way lower if you take out flights. Because if we have a day, so say like today we did some work for YouTube in the morning, we grabbed a couple of groceries, and this is our whole day. We spend about $55 a day doing this.
Canadian.
And that's all in, including our travel insurance and food and accommodation and all those things. But, you know, next week we get on a flight to India, and all of a sudden in one day we spend an extra $3,000, right? So the weeks look really different in terms of cost. So overall, the budget, like for the month, would be around 3,000 Canadian dollars. Again, the first year we went over that, but we had a lot of flights that first year.
Yeah.
And a lot of countries that would have been fairly cheap for us when we traveled for our first year were a little bit more expensive just because of COVID restrictions. We had lots of quarantining, lots of extra flights that we were like very roundabout just because of flight restrictions.
Yeah.
So this year has come out so far it's looking like it's going to be a less expensive year because the world is just more open. So I think that $100 is actually way more feasible in this sort of more back to regular life
and
kind
even
of travel world.
Yeah, even if you want to break it down further, like I think our biggest expenses would be accommodation as like one of the first ones. And when we look back at our average, I think we were about $21 US a day for accommodation.
Yeah, it's like 26 Canadian.
Over how many? I don't remember how many months of travel that was.
The year. It was a
over,
year.
Yeah, over 12 months of travel.
Yeah, it was a year.
So, which is actually pretty reasonable. It's actually better than I thought after we crunched all the numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, and then after that is definitely like food and activities.
Yeah, I was going to mention activities. Activities for us is where we're willing to stretch our budget. And so sometimes that's where we'll go over our budget because we really want to do a cool once in a lifetime thing. And that's the place where we're willing to we're going to put in the extra money. And yes, maybe it means we travel overall for a week or 2 less because it costs us a lot of money. For us, that's worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, those memories are definitely worth it, right? Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, that's why we're here. So if like, I don't want to travel and just sit in apartments all day, right? So, and so for us, that's priority 1. And we're willing to put out the money for that because it's like, how many times are you going to be in Nepal and go to Everest Base Camp? You're going to do it one time.
Yeah.
So we'll put the money in now because I'm not going back. It was hard. It was too hard.
Yeah, but you did it. That's so cool.
We did it.
Yeah.
So for a full year of travel, we got a couple numbers in front of us. And we do a more detailed breakdown in our video on our channel. But just this is a spoiler right here. So
yes, we are gonna put the links up here. So just share just a little bit because we want the folks.
Shameless plug.
We'll just tease a little bit.
We do have a whole video, so.
So over a full year of travel, 12 months for 2 people, Nicole and I spent $37,500 something US dollars.
Yeah.
So that was for 2 people traveling over 12 months. And I think with that, we visited 16,
I think it was 16 countries. Yeah.
Ranging from South Asia to the Middle East to
South America.
South America.
Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up.
So like I mentioned earlier, it was about 21 US dollars a day. We averaged on accommodations, and that was normally mostly Airbnbs.
Yeah.
Just because Nicole and I like to cook our own food, and it's a really good way to keep our costs down. I think over that year we spent around almost 6,000 US dollars on food alone.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty decent, because if you were to take your normal vacation holiday food budget and multiply that by 365, I'm sure it'd be well over that amount.
Yeah. We were actually able to see that it was something like 80% of our total, or I think we eat out like 20% of the time. We really don't eat out a lot. We do a lot of our own cooking, but our eating out budget was like 70% of our overall budget for food, or something wild. So by doing all of our own cooking and just like having breakfasts in and coffees in and things like that, we really save a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys just gave me hope.
Yeah.
With that number. Like I've heard your number and I'm like, oh my God, we can totally do this.
Yeah. It's way cheaper than
totally.
home. Like food in Canada is right.
You gotta eat like a local though. Like you work with local ingredients. You make your own food. Like if you're not unless you choose to like settle down somewhere in the West, like you gotta be ready to maybe have some things you're gonna be missing. You know, like a good Alberta steak is not.
Oh my goodness.
We had a hard time finding.
I miss it so much.
And we still do have a hard time finding. But it's very doable to keep your budget low as long as you track it and as long as you
eat the local grocery stores, like
just
get your veggies at the veggie market, those sorts of things.
But even just numbers wise, like another category were activities, and we spent $7,000 US on activities over 12 months of travel. Again, that's for 2 people.
And that could be anything from going on a long multi-day trek to just like going on a walking tour and tipping our guide.
And just some of the big things that we I think did on $7,000 were we did a 11-12 day activity to do Everest Base Camp on that budget. We did
so many things.
Hot air balloon rides in Cappadocia, Turkey.
Wadi Rum in Jordan
in the desert. We went to
Salt Flats in Bolivia.
Saw the pyramids, Egypt.
Machu
Patagonia.
Picchu.
So like
Machu Picchu,
Machu Picchu.
You can really do a lot. And again, for us, that was where we prioritize our spending. Truly, we're happy to spend money there if it means the experiences. So
and when you think about that, like $7,000, if you take your average couple that goes on 2 all-inclusive vacations a year, that's your $7,000, and that's 2 weeks of a vacation. Over the course of part of the year. But now you guys have had an entire year of experiences for the same amount.
It's impressive. It's really impressive how little you can spend when you just sort of move slow and go with the flow, and and you're just like open to the experiences as they come.
So great. Oh, I can't wait. Let's go tomorrow.
Right? You're gonna be ready. You have enough money, I'm sure.
Right? I know. And if we don't, we'll make it work.
You'll just figure it out. You'll just figure it out. So true.
We'll meet you guys in India. So you guys have had your gap 2 years. You've had your taste of financial independence. So has this experience changed how you guys view your future now going forward? Will you change maybe some of your plans or the way that you would have maybe lived and gear it more towards a financial independence lifestyle? Or how do you see your future?
I think, the answer is absolutely. It has changed our outlook on, I think, just the general outlook we have on what's possible in our future. I think we really expected to go back home and kind of go back to that grind of the 9 to 5. And while that may be in our future, we're really just open to so many options, and they don't seem anywhere near as terrifying to take that big leap. Previously, if you had told me, hey, you should become a digital nomad and move to Costa Rica for a year, I'd have been like, whoo, I don't think I can do that. But now I'm like, sweet, let's go to Costa Rica and live there. Like, that's fine. I'm sure we'll be fine. And if we don't like it, we'll move to Nicaragua or something. Like, our outlook on what is possible has completely changed. And then even just the idea of, for us, like even if we go back to Calgary and pick up our 9-to-5s, I think we're really we're looking now at, okay, we'll do the 9-to-5s, but what else can we be doing alongside this that will guarantee that, well, hopefully guarantee that in, however many years, we have other ways of making money that don't rely on us being, here, being present 40 hours a week in this position, for example. So I think that's been our biggest change, truly.
Yeah, like doing this now and like in our kind of quote unquote gap year, 2 year, like Nicole said, like it really opens up the idea that other possibilities exist, because I think a lot of times, you can get really focused into your job at home, and then you're surrounded also by very similar people that are there with you. And then you just kind of don't realize how much of a bubble that you can be in, and you kind of close off into what else is happening in the world. So like in time traveling, we've met a whole bunch of other people who are doing this financial independence thing. They're digital nomads, they're expats that have been here for so long. They've all got their different ways and different stories of how they got there. And it's been so nice to listen to them and hear them and understand, like, there's this whole avenue of living your life that can be outside of the traditional 9-to-5. I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
No.
It's just that when we were in that space before we left for traveling, we just had a hard time picturing what that looked like.
What was another option?
So the gap year has really opened our ideas to that.
Yeah. And I don't think we will ever now, like, I don't think we'll ever go back home and just work on just going to work and contributing to our RSPs and waiting for 65. Like that will just never be our life anymore. It just won't.
Right.
We've joked around before that like travel Southeast Asia and you discover yourself. So we did that in like our earlier 20s. And then like now as you're traveling again in like your 30s, like we're also like cliche discovering ourselves again. But, like, in a more like adult manner, in a sense. It's been nice to, like I said earlier, dive into this like practice retirement, because then it kind of gives you an idea of how you can do your retirement like fully later on.
Later on, yeah. And I think a big part of that too, just to add on to that one last piece, is giving yourself the opportunity to really think about what do you really like. I think for us, like we dove into university early on and we spent so many years in school, and you just go. And then we really haven't taken a very good step back to just be like, I could do anything with my day. What would it be? And so this gap year allowed us the time to reflect on that. Like, wow, what do I actually want my day to look like if no one else has a say in it but me? So that's been a huge gift.
I kind of said segue to my next question. Would you do anything different if you had to start from the beginning again?
Oh my gosh, it's so tough. Part of me wants to say no because I love the journey we've been on.
Yeah.
But I also think that, let's say we had this insight 10 years ago, I would like to think that we were just more intentional about the financial journey like you guys have been. Because for us, of course, the idea was just save, and then spend. But at the end of the day, we got to go back. Like that's not sustainable. So I think if I were to do it all over again and have a lot of foresight, I would probably have worked, personally, I think I would have worked on another avenue of some sort of passive income that would have helped to kind of bolster us and just given us a long enough time to really like think through and plan through some of our interests and maybe what we want to do with our future careers.
I'd say for me, maybe what we would change would be like tackling YouTube earlier as well.
That's true.
I feel like they're almost like so many once in a lifetime trips that like happen week after week that it's hard to remember it all. And so while we really treasure like our memories in Sri Lanka and Nepal, they really are just our own. And I mean, that's not a bad thing, but like it would have been fun to like look back on that or share those experiences. Maybe YouTube would have been doing that a little earlier would have been
that's a good
more
point.
fun.
That would have been cool.
You guys have been traveling for a year and a half and you're doing it sort of in a budget mindset. Is there any tips that you can share or any really good places to go and search for deals or things that you might have come across that we might not know about?
I think two things, like the pace of your travel and where you travel to is going to be probably one of the biggest factors. So like, we said earlier, like if you are going to be spending a few months in Asia and in Southeast Asia, especially, as compared to like spending months in Europe, you're definitely going to be spending more in Europe than you will be in Asia. Unless you're going for like a luxury, like private island,
It's not our style.
So being selective of where you travel to is a good thing. Like you said, that we kind of put maybe more expensive countries at the beginning, and then less expensive countries near the end. Traveling slowly, yeah. I think we found that you can save a lot of money doing that.
So much money doing that. And even staying in one place for just 1 week, for example. But if you could stay in one place for a month, we haven't done that. But if you could stay in like one apartment for a month, you could save a lot of money that way. One of the ways that we're able to save on cost is, again, I think we've mentioned we use Airbnb quite a lot. Anywhere we stay, really, whether it's through Airbnb or if we do something on like booking.com, is we'll often book only the first couple of days that we want to be there. And then we just chat with the owners about extending the stay. We've saved a ton of money over the last year and a half by doing that. And
Really?
Just doing it in person, because then they don't have to pay any of their booking fees for their website, whatever's hosting them, the booking site. So they save money that way, and they just basically take it off. It reduces our cost. And we want to stay longer then, of course, because the stay is cheaper. So we've saved a lot of money doing that. So I think,
smart.
again, that kind of goes to traveling slow, I think, and being open and flexible. That has risks. Maybe it gets booked and you can't stay there anymore. But for the most part, honestly, we've been in good shape, and we just chat with the host and extend. So I think, honestly, that's been, I would say, our biggest money saving tip outside of cook your own food.
Yeah.
At a minimum, I think travelers should work on, if they have the time, just having your own breakfasts. Like, it's so easy to get a hotel room with a fridge, and then you can buy some cereal and a bag of milk. We have little collapsible bowls and a fork, and you can have breakfast for free every day. Well, not for free, but for cheap. We left Canada with our bags so full. We were traveling carry-on for our first year. So we have 38 liters. Our bags are stuffed. And immediately we discovered that, like, we need spices. We needed a little knife. Like, we needed... We often carry like rice and beans, like all these little things, because you transition to a new home every week or so, and we don't want to buy everything all over again, because
sometimes there'll be like half a kilo of sugar in my backpack.
Yes,
traveling with that, like checking that in, it's so true. But like, it pays off to cook your own meals, like you said earlier, and traveling slowly allows you time to go out and get groceries, and then
plan a meal for a few nights.
Exactly,
right?
As opposed to going to a restaurant.
Oh, that's awesome. I really like that tip about only booking a few days and then talking to the host. I never would have thought that would have been a possibility, but that's great to know.
And particularly on Airbnb, because man, their fees can just be wild, like so expensive. So we'll have our costs reduced by like 15 to 30%, depending on where we're staying.
Like however the locals do it. Is usually the best way to save money.
That's good. That's a good tip, actually.
What is the funniest thing that you have done, from this 1 year and a half of traveling?
But I have what I think might be your funniest. Well,
okay, yeah, sure.
Ooh, I want to know.
What I would pick would be your funniest, or we would pick, but we'll see if it's the same as yours. What's your funniest memory?
Mico and I on purpose didn't talk about this at all beforehand, because I'm like, what's our funniest memory? And I can't actually think of one. Mico says he has one. I want to know. I've been waiting all day.
Okay. This one wasn't on YouTube or anything. It was, we were in Nepal, and we were in a place called Pokhara, which is like kind of like the gateway to the Annapurna region. And we were going around like in shops and looking for like bottoms for Nicole, like a base layer, like a thicker base layer, because we were gonna go hiking in Everest Base Camp later on. And I remember going shop to shop and trying on clothes. Well, like these shops in Nepal, like they're really tiny, and they're like filled with things, like everything, like from the ceiling, like from the floor to the ceiling, covered in like different clothing or
everything
souvenirs and knickknacks. And I remember coming to this one place, and Nicole found something she liked, and she wanted to try on the bottoms, but like there's no change rooms. And like we've seen some places where there's like no change rooms, and they have like a little like almost like a shower curtain kind of thing, and you can change behind that or whatever. So the guy was like looking for a change room. He's like, oh, there's no change room here. And he just kind of like points to the corner.
I remember this. There was like 3 or 4 people, men, 3 or 4 men having tea in this shop.
No, they were playing chess.
They were playing chess. Playing something.
Yeah, they were playing chess, and then they're like, "Oh, just told Nicole, like, just change in the corner. Like, we won't look. Like, we promise."
It was like probably 5 feet away from them. I'm like, okay.
We're like, I don't know. Like, I don't really not comfortable with that. So then the shop owner talks to his friends, and like these 4 or 5 like old Nepali guys like pick up their tea, stop playing their game of chess, and they all go to the front of the shop. And like the 5 of them are just like standing in a line in front of the shop, looking out into the street.
The street.
And then drinking their tea so that Nicole can change and like counter behind them. So I just thought it was like the funniest thing.
It was one of those moments where I think we've been in Nepal for like a month or so at this point, and we just looked at each other like, this is so Nepal.
Yeah.
Like this is just one of those great memories that you have that just like at home I would have thought this was so ridiculous, but here I'm like, oh yes, this is perfect.
Oh yes, when you got stuck in the public bathroom and there was long.
And George,
That was our first ever YouTube video.
right.
I forgot about that one.
So our first ever YouTube video, yes, was in Tbilisi in Georgia.
We tried to scam the toilets though. That was our problem.
Yeah.
This is how cheap we are. We're like, we'll just pay once, I'll pee, and then Nico will use the washroom.
Yeah, so
no,
for
it don't work like that.
For anybody who's watching hasn't seen the video, there's like a public toilet in like downtown Tbilisi, Georgia, and you got to pay like, I don't know what it was, like 2 lari or something like that, which is probably like less than $1 to like go into use the washroom. And so then Nicole goes in, and then instead of like
Paying again.
like I need to use it too, so instead of like paying again, she just held the door open for me. And then
Terrible.
what happened was that like when the door closed after she left, it like locked because it like registered that nobody should be in there anymore.
I think if you're European, you know these things because we've been to Europe and they have these toilets everywhere that you pay and you use it. But as Canadians, we don't have these toilets. So I'm like, we'll just scam the system. This is great. Let's save 70 cents. Terrible plan.
So like, yeah, thank goodness like Nicole was outside, because like I was legit stuck in that. There was no emergency exit button or anything like that. Like I would have died in that washroom.
All the change was with you inside the bathroom.
Yeah,
though,
that's
wasn't it?
because I had the wallet.
I had to ask somebody for their money, and of course I don't speak Georgian. Going to the washroom, trying to tell my husband is stuck inside the washroom. Oh,
Yeah.
gosh, that was a good memory.
Oh my gosh, that was my favorite. Did you guys want to add anything else, or did you think of anything else that you wanted to talk about?
Maybe just, I thought about just when you were talking about money saving tips and travel. One thing to consider when you're planning your budget for travel abroad or long-term or full-time is to don't underestimate your expenses back at home, because it sometimes can be difficult to fully eliminate those expenses. So like for Nicole and I, like, yes, we have this like budget for traveling and things like that, but there's also things at home that we still continuously pay for.
Yep.
That we didn't really think about before we left.
Well, we thought about it,
but like, you know, it can play a bigger role than you might expect.
It's true. So like for us as an example, even like our home, like we have a home that's being rented out, but not all of the expenses are covered when you really look at like insurance for the house and our condo fees, all those things. Yeah. So some of that money still has to come out of our pocket every month. We have storage at home for some of our items. We don't have a lot of items, but we still do a couple of things.
Yeah.
We call it our home starter kit. So if we do go home, we have a table and plate. If we need that, there's our emergency home starter kit.
Yeah.
The other actually piece of that is that we still have student loans that we're paying for. And I think for us, like we definitely could have taken this money for travel and paid off our student loans instead of traveling. And I think for a lot of people that like that's their goal and that's what they want to do. For us, it was more important that we travel at this time in our life, just because we're at a life stage where this lifestyle is sort of possible. And if, you know, our future plans for potentially a family, like we'll kind of make this timeline is kind of specific. And once we run out of this time, we're not sure what our life will look like. So, so that's also an expense that we still pay every month. I mean, depending on how truly you can sever your ties with your home country. I mean, maybe you can leave $0 a month going like you're not spending anything back home. That'd be great.
That's a good point actually. Yeah.
But I don't think that we are considering that in our budget, so we have to revisit ours.
That's why I just need to sell everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, it's a great idea. I mean, if you can, we would suggest it. We would.
We're still, and also we're just still holding out that for Trudeau to pardon some student loan budget. Right behind the stakes, right behind Biden. I know you can do it.
Hoping for you.
We're just waiting for that to leak over into Canadian policy.
Well, that's great. So if people want to follow along with all of your adventures, where can they find you guys?
Our YouTube channel is creatively called our names, Nicole and Mico. Very
That's-
clever.
That's Nicole, and then Mico is spelled Mico.
Yeah. So Nicole and Mico. And we also have an Instagram account that we keep up-ish. We
Yeah.
do our best to.
Yeah.
And it's also just Nicole and Mico, but there's an underscore at the end. So
Yeah.
I'd say those are the two primary places to keep up with us, eh?
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
trying TikTok, but it's like we're still very new at it. If you want something more raw, that's a good place to start.
Yeah, we're learning. It's taken a while.
Yeah.
We're trying to learn TikTok. It's hard.
Oh my gosh, I haven't even.
We don't have an account. Maybe it's a good time for us to create an account on TikTok and
Ah,
follow you guys.
All the tech things.
my God. One more tech thing.
Yeah,
One
yeah.
more thing to do.
That's right.
Oh, and we also have a website, NicoleMico.com. That's like the last place.
Yeah.
But if anybody wants to get a hold of us, like Instagram's usually the best place to catch us. We don't really make like beautiful curated Instagram like other maybe travel
I think we've made
vloggers or influencers.
we've made 3 reels in a year and a half.
Yeah, like our Instagram is just like basically like family and friends. Like if
Here's-
you want to
here's
follow
what
along, yeah, like we're not in it for we just want to. It's a place for memories.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's nice.
for sure.
Yeah.
Great. We love your channel because it is exactly that too, right? You guys are who you are. You're the same people talking with us as you are on your channel. You're not anybody different. And you guys have some really great tips and experiences that you pass along, which is also really, we find actually really helpful and different than some other channels. So great job there.
Great.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks so
it's
much.
awesome to hear you've been enjoying them. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So
Yeah.
have fun in India because you guys are off to India in what, 3 days now?
Oh my
Something
gosh.
like that, yeah.
Something like that. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's going to
We're
be a
not
long
ready.
flight.
No. Thank you so much. And
Thank
you
you.
guys, thank you so much for having us. It was so great to connect and just chat through some of this some more and share a bit of our story.
And
Yeah.
it's great learning from you guys as well. We've had
So
other
good.
conversations outside, obviously, of this call that we're having now. And
Yep.
you know, it's Nicole and I always say that I think if and when we go back home and start thinking about more, you know, financial independence and the pathway to that point, like we are so happy to have found you guys in your channel. Because I think there's like the whole cheat book is right there.
Yeah.
It's right in front of us.
Yeah. There's a lot of really good Canadian content out there. It's a little hard to find sometimes, but there's some really great blogs and
Yeah.
websites and stuff that you guys will be well on your way for sure. Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
hope that you don't have to do this. I hope that you keep doing what you are doing and
Yeah.
don't have to come back, you know, and work. I
Yeah.
mean,
So
I hope so
everybody
too.
subscribe and like their videos so that they can get
Yeah.
And
There
they
we
can
go.
keep doing this for
Yeah.
the rest of their
Do this
lives.
forever.
Watch me get stuck in washrooms around the world.
It could be a thing.
Whole channel.
Yeah.
Watch Miko trying to escape public toilets.
Yeah.
That's great.
oh man,
Yeah.
that's nice. All right, thank
All
you
right,
guys.
guys.
We appreciate it.
Have a great day.
Yeah.
Take
Thank
care.
Thank you guys so much for having us.
Bye.
Bye. Let me start recording.
Love her voice.
I know.
The robot.
I think it's going.
Okay,
All right.
perfect.
Okay.
Awesome.
Exactly.
All right.
Love
What's the
that.
next one? Oh, are we going to run out of time on this
We
one?
have
Oh, 5 minutes.
5 minutes, maybe one more question, and then we stop and
Sure,
go
yeah,
to the next link.
All
I
right.
know. I noticed we didn't answer the second half of that, but we can if you guys want. But
Oh, which one
in
was
case
that?
costs are important on the.
Yeah, maybe, because I think people really like the numbers.
I
People
agree.
like numbers. So, okay. All right. Well, let me ask it then. Okay.